City Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Yes. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Here.
Alderman Suffredin.
Here.
Alderman Ravel.
Here.
Alderman Rainey. I see you. So I think you said here, but you're muted. Alderman Fleming.
Here.
And Alderman Fleming is not here. Alderman Fisk.
Here.
Alderman Braithwaite. Oh, and Peter's away from the, Alderman Braithwaite is away from the camera. Alderman Nguyen
Here.
and Alderman Wilson.
Here.
All right, well, welcome everybody to the Monday, October 12th, 2020 Evanston City Council meeting. We've got all of our aldermen here this evening, except for Alderman Fleming, who couldn't make it. Before we begin the meeting, Alderman Wilson, could you move a motion, please?
Yes. I move that we suspend the rules to allow us to conduct the meeting using the Zoom software in lieu of a personal meeting in accordance with the governor's prior directives relating to COVID-19 pandemic.
Second.
All right, City Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming. I'm sorry. Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen
Aye.
and Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
All right, so the motion passes 8-0 that we can meet virtually due to the pandemic. So welcome everybody again to the Monday, October 12th meeting. Happy Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day. It's a good day to reflect that we live, work, and play on the land of three Native peoples here, the Potawatomi, the Ottawa, also known as Ottawa, and the Ojibwe tribes, also known as the Council of Three Fires. If you haven't been, we have a wonderful Museum of American Indians here in Evanston, the Mitchell Museum at 3001 Central Street, which if you ever get the chance to go, it's really pretty incredible, over 10,000 historical and cultural items. And I know they do a lot every year for Indigenous Peoples Day. And because of the pandemic, aren't able to do everything that they usually do. So that last week was Mental Health Illness Week. Was October 4th to the 10th, and I just wanted to recognize that mental health, as we've talked about before, is rising in this country, and it was rising before the pandemic. With the advent of the pandemic, it is only worse for individuals and families out there. So in response to that rising increase, and particularly with the pandemic, the city will be featuring a new awareness initiative called Mental Health is Essential, to highlight and support and provide resources available here in Evanston to residents. Having sound mental health is crucial. Reaching out for access, care, and tips to cope during this time is a necessary and positive step for all of us. Please be on the lookout for mental health resources, tips, self-care guides, and more shared periodically in upcoming newsletters through our communication channels here in the city. Our health department, which is already working so hard on the pandemic, is also equally focused on our mental health. The established mental health subcommittee of the mayor's COVID-19 task force that we've mentioned in the past. We do have a mental health working group that's doing excellent work. I just want to recognize those organizations. It is NAMI is one of the organizations, Amita Health is another, Peer Services, the Institute for Therapy Through the Arts, North Shore University Health Systems, Mental Health America of the North Shore, Naomi Ruth Cohen Institute, the Evanston Community Foundation, the Moran Center, Impact Behavioral Health, YOU, and the Family Institute of Northwestern University. My vision is that while we stood up this mental health working group for the pandemic, this is a group that's going to carry on long after the pandemic is under control, and I think that's important. If you have any mental health needs, please do visit the city's website. We have a lot of resources there, or please call 311. And let's all just take good care of ourselves during this difficult time. I want to recognize World Polio Day, which is coming up later this month. I don't know if everybody realizes this and if it gets enough recognition, but we are blessed to have Rotary International headquartered right here in Evanston on Sherman, and they're in the 20-story white building downtown. And Rotary International has done an amazing job with a few other organizations in trying to eradicate the world of polio. And it has taken, many generations to do that, but they are pretty close. This past year, Africa was recently declared polio virus free, which is pretty amazing. They are seeing an uptick in, or cases are still being reported in Afghanistan and Pakistan. So I just want to offer a proclamation to our Evanston Rotary clubs. We have two Rotary clubs here, the Noontime Club and then the Morning Club. And I do want to just recognize them through this proclamation. Whereas Rotary is a global network of neighbors, friends, leaders, and problem solvers who unite and take action to create lasting change in communities across the globe. Whereas the Rotary motto, service above self, inspires members to provide humanitarian service, follow high ethical standards, and promote peace and goodwill in the world. And whereas Rotary in 1985 launched Polio Plus, and in 1988 helped establish the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, which today includes the World Health Organization, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, UNICEF, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, to immunize the children of the world against polio. And whereas polio cases have dropped, listen to this, 99.9% since 1988, the world stands on the threshold of eradicating this disease. And whereas to date, Rotary has contributed more than $2.1 billion in countless dollars and countless volunteer hours to protecting more than 2.5 billion children in 122 countries. And whereas Rotary is working to raise an additional $50 million per year, which would be leveraged for maximum impact by an additional $100 million annually from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And whereas these efforts are providing much needed operational support and medical staff, laboratory equipment, and educational materials for health workers and parents. And whereas in addition, Rotary has played a major role in decisions by donor governments to contribute more than $10 billion to this effort. And whereas there are over 1.2 million Rotary members in more than 35,000 clubs throughout the world that sponsor service projects to address such critical needs as poverty, disease, hunger, illiteracy, and the environment in their communities and abroad. Therefore, I, Stephen Howard Haggerty, the mayor of the city of Evanston, do hereby proclaim October 24th, 2020 as World Polio Day in Evanston, Illinois, and encourage all of our citizens to join me and Rotary International, the Rotary Club of Evanston, and the Evanston Lighthouse Rotary Club in the fight for a polio-free world. So thank you to all of our Rotarians. We have many in this city, including the CEO and head of Rotary. One of the downsides, there's a lot of downsides of the pandemic. One is Evanston's a fairly international kind of city for the small city that we are. And a big part of that is Rotary International. And they haven't been able to have all of those visitors that they usually have every single year that frequent our restaurants and our hotels. Let's see. Lastly, I want to give an update to our community on the city manager search. As many of you know, last week we held video meetings with the 3 finalists for the city manager position. On Wednesday evening, all 3 candidates participated in a public forum where resident questions submitted beforehand were asked of the candidates. On Thursday morning, the finalists were interviewed by 2 community panels and a department heads panel. 2 representatives from each panel then debriefed with the city council in executive session prior to the council conducting final interviews with each of the candidates. Given the quality of all three finalists, the council deliberated for several hours in executive session. Per executive session rules, no roll call vote was taken by the clerk, who was also in attendance. However, there was a general consensus to have GovHR move forward with one candidate to negotiate a contract. I'm hopeful that the contract and an announcement from the city will be forthcoming tomorrow. If so, on Monday, October 19th, the City Council and Mayor will vote on the contract and offer of employment. Per city ordinance, at least 7 members of the council, including the mayor, must vote affirmatively for the candidate to be seated as our next city manager. In summary, we had 3 excellent candidates vying as finalists for this job. I hope that when the announcement is made that our community will support and rally around the candidate that the majority of our council thinks will serve our community best for many years to come. So we will talk more about that if it goes per the schedule that I just announced next Monday, a week from today. And that wraps up my announcements. I'm going to turn to the city manager for any announcements that the interim city manager for any announcements she has.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have one announcement regarding properties in the community that we have been hearing concerns about that require a multi-departmental response. So Johanna Neiden, our Community Development Director, is here this evening to talk more about that.
Good evening. So briefly, these are properties that have resulted in response from police, fire, and health. So an example of that might be a home that gets police calls, a home that has property maintenance issues, and a home that might have some health-related issues. Maybe they don't quite rise to the issue of a zoning issue, but have from overcrowding, but might have people concerned about behaviors related to COVID in not wearing masks or practicing social distancing. So what we found is we had been previously responding to these properties in a very siloed manner. So police would do their work, property maintenance would do their work, and health would do their work. And so really, in some ways, duplicating the city outreach to tenants, to landlords. So we have we've now established an internal task force that also includes the law department to try to get at some of the issues that are related to perhaps an absentee landlord or a landlord that isn't necessarily absentee but out of town in another place and is not necessarily aware of our rules and local ordinances. So we've been meeting for a grand total of 2 weeks now on Monday afternoons to review and really establish a list, not an actual list of properties that need this additional attention, comparing notes with our colleagues and looking at how we can better respond. One thing that we've determined, we've actually had about almost 10 of these meetings, staff from community development and the property maintenance team and the law department have been meeting with landlords to go over some of the issues that involve property maintenance issues, but also could rise to some police or health issues given the pandemic, and having one-on-ones with those the landlords to make sure that they understand the rules and regulations, and try to remind them that they could otherwise end up in court if they don't work with us. So this intermediate step, we haven't been able to prove out if it's been effective yet, but our hope is that it will be and is a good way to work with a property owner before it goes to a step like court or administrative adjudication. We've created an internal 311 request so we can work together to create the awareness about these different properties. And one other item that has kind of come up out of this is the addition of another property maintenance inspector, which is before you in the 2021 budget. Just more boots on the ground to make sure that we're keeping an eye on all these properties. While it's not just a property maintenance, property standards issue, having more people that can observe behaviors and trends in the built environment is important.
Thank you, Johanna. I think we have a question from Alderman Fisk.
Yes, thank you, Johanna. Could you just tell me what we're doing to keep neighbors apprised of the how the process is going forward? I've had a lot of questions from folks who want to know what's happening.
Sure. So we have we're in progress on developing a one-pager FAQ informational document that can either be physically shared or shared via email that gives people an understanding of property maintenance. Not all these issues are nuisance properties. So we use those words sometimes because in our world, this is a quote unquote nuisance, but our code speaks to specifically nuisance properties that aren't necessarily, some of these properties aren't rising to that. So we're, the informational piece outlines our property maintenance process of a citation, notice of violation, ticketing, all those procedures, so people can understand that even though they may not see that the trash or the property maintenance issue has been alleviated, there is a process that we have to give somebody a time to cure, but there is a clock that runs out on those things.
Thank you. Anything else, Interim Manager Storley?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That concludes my announcements.
All right, thank you. City Clerk, any City Clerk announcements?
Yes, if I'm able to share my screen for a second. Share screen. There we go. All right, this is a neat graphic, so thank you to, I'm assuming Patrick Degnan and the team in our community development, in our outreach team there, for developing this graphic. But this, it's available on the city's website. The city clerk's office will be sharing it. But it gives early voting here in Evanston, October 19th through November 2nd. We receive calls and questions and emails fairly often regarding this. So we're going to keep putting the information out. Early voting begins October 19th at the Civic Center. You can see the times, 8:30 to 7 p.m. On weekdays, and on weekends, 9 to 5 p.m. We encourage folks to use the hashtag Evanston Votes to spread the word about the election. And then lastly, I want to point folks to our election page here. Sorry, there's our election page here. It's a sub-tab of the clerk's page, and you can find election information. It repeats that information about early voting, as well as information about mail-in ballots. You can continue to apply on line. The last day to request a mail-in ballot is October 29th. I would suggest requesting it long before then. I'd recommend cutting off fairly soon. And then also, folks, you can drop off your mail-in ballot at a drop box. There's information regarding the drop boxes that will be available beginning October 19th at the Civic Center. And you also are able to, we always want to encourage folks to use our local facilities. But if you're going on vacation, or you're getting away, or you're just itching to get your vote in for the election, or you have health concerns and you're part of a vulnerable population, and you want to, make sure you avoid long lines, you can go to the Skokie Courthouse and cast your ballot at one of the at their satellite location there. And I believe it says here that the Skokie Courthouse is open to the regular early voting hours. So I believe it's 9 to 5 at the Skokie Courthouse. I would call ahead to verify that. So the clerk's office remains available. You can reach out to the clerk's office if you have any issues regarding or questions regarding the upcoming November election. And so we encourage folks to vote. It's in the screen share. No. And then I do also just want to, I'm sorry, Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, Clerk Reed. So I have a number of residents who have not received their, they did the mail-in ballot, and I noticed just for a second there that you had instructions on what should happen to if you have not received your mail-in ballot. Could you just describe them? Because I know many people who are anxious, who've decided that they want to vote in person and not use their mail-in ballot, but they understand that they need to have their mail-in ballot in hand in order to do that.
Am I muted? No, I'm not muted. No, folks. So we reach out to the county clerk's office if you have not received your mail-in ballot. I believe they. Let me see. 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 Let me reach out to the county clerk's office. I believe they have a portal when I did not request a mail-in ballot this year, but I believe there's a portal to track the status of your mail-in ballot. If not, you can also certainly, if you do not receive it, or if you have any issues receiving it, please come in to early vote. You will be allowed to early vote. The election judges will know if you requested a mail-in ballot, and so they'll ask you for it. If you don't have it, they'll give you a provisional ballot, and so your ballot won't be counted, until a few days after the election. Once they verify that your mail-in ballot has not been mailed in to ensure
Okay.
you don't double vote. So
Good.
certainly
Thank you
come in.
very much. Mhm.
I believe no other questions regarding that. All right, and then my last announcement is just to add my voice to to confirm what Mayor Haggerty said. I take the role of clerk very seriously, and I believe that a vote happened in executive session that was not to take place. That is something that I certainly would stand to make sure that we had a good process there. I would encourage folks in the community to look at the process, and I think we should be advocating to set this process that was performed by the council this year in stone, and to make sure that we work together to solidify a solid process for how the city of Evanston makes the most important, or how the aldermen make the most critical decision they make, which is selecting the city manager. So I just want to make sure that we're focused on, structural reform rather than other issues. So that ends my comments for today.
Thank you, Clerk Reed, and thank you for that report out on the elections. I know people are very anxious to get their ballots in, especially if they've already received them. All right, we're going to move now to public comment. We have 15, we actually have 16 people that have signed up. We just had a late sign up on public comment. So I'm going to set aside 2 minutes and 50 seconds for each speaker tonight. As everyone knows, we set aside 45 minutes in total for our speakers. And so we'll just get going. I will read off the three names so you know if you're coming up. But first we've got Leslie Williams, and then we have Carla Thomas this evening, and then Kevin Brown.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. I want to start out by saying that I question the appropriateness of saluting Christopher Columbus on the day that we're honoring the people he slaughtered and tortured. We don't salute Robert E. Lee or Jefferson Davis during Black History Month, and I don't think we should be honoring Columbus during Indigenous Peoples Month. But actually, I did come here to talk about the city manager process. The process was begun in June, and it was supposed to be transparent and inclusive of citizen input, and to respect the priorities of community members, especially around racial equity. Yet I do not feel this process was any of those things. After a citizen forum at which no citizens were allowed to ask direct questions or to follow up, and 2 community panels during which participants were given a script of questions they themselves had not prepared, the council withdrew to deliberate and apparently chose the new city manager. Despite the request of council members Cicely Fleming and Tom Suffredin, the council did not hold a public vote or publicly announce the rationale for their choice. So while we can't be sure which candidate was selected, this process leads me to question whether or not the council has actually taken citizen input into account, or if this entire hiring process has been a sham. I would ask each council member to publicly explain his or her vote and how their preferred finalist fulfills the expectations of outstanding visionary leadership, experience in creative budgeting, and a deep commitment to racial equity, reflected not just in her approach to policy, but also her past treatment of Black employees and citizens. As Alderman Fleming said, this is the most important vote any of you will ever likely cast, and your constituents have a right to know how your decision was made. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Carla Thomas, then Kevin Brown, then Carolyn Laughlin.
I would like to start by acknowledging the same thing that Leslie said. I was going to state myself, but to put the white man before our acknowledgement for Indigenous Peoples Day was just, well, it was Evanston. As a member of the City of Evanston's Equity and Employment Committee, and more importantly, just as an Evanston resident, I feel it necessary to speak up when I see glaring red flags of racial injustice, especially if they're perpetuated by the city. I felt it critical to watch the city manager panel this past week, as the city manager position is the most important position and most powerful position in our community, and Evanston will have some tough years ahead, and we're going to need some strong, decisive leadership. What I saw were two extremely educated, experienced, and polished outside candidates who came prepared to tell the citizens of Evanston how they would handle our equity, economic, and environmental struggles. But what I also saw was a local candidate who struggled to express any true understanding of equity past a buzzword level understanding, or who also struggled to demonstrate any past personal action around equity in this community. This candidate also failed to be able to articulate a strategic economic plan of getting Evanston's economy back on track after COVID. Simply asking the city's lowest paid staff to cut back on hours will not get us there. I was disappointed, to say the least. As a Black woman, I will also point out that this is the very thing that we refer to when we say that we have to come twice as good and work twice as hard to achieve the same things as mediocre whiteness. Yes, I said it. We saw another example of that on a national stage that very night of our own community panel. But that's just my opinion and my lived experience, and I am only one citizen in this town. So what I expected of this process was that the citizens would be allowed some time to watch that video and to form their own opinions and to give their opinions to their representatives. Then, before the recorded video could even be made public the next day, the city council found themselves behind closed doors voting for Evanston's future in an emergency 6-hour session with feedback from a cherry-picked few local citizens. While the final vote has not been made public, I take heart in what my mother always told me. You do not do things behind closed doors that you are actually proud of. So I ask our elected officials, why the secrecy? Why the rush? And how are we Evanston cities to trust the forthrightness of our elected officials when so many things are being done behind closed doors and with corrupt emails from high-powered, moneyed citizens trying to influence our community's future? If this search was simply to placate the cries for fairness, and there was no intention to deviate from the selection that the city attempted to pass back in May, how do you justify these wasted tax dollars to our citizens? And finally, when the city of Evanston wrote an equity statement 2 years ago, and they made the bold proclamation that they wanted to eliminate effects of racism, I was rightfully skeptical. If this move is emblematic of the city, what the city of Evanston means by eliminating the effects of racism, that statement is not worth the paper it was written on. But hey, there may be another toilet paper shortage soon, so we might have use for it after all.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Kevin Brown, Carolyn Laughlin, then Eric Bissett.
Good evening, Mayor Haggerty, City Clerk, and the Evanston City Council. My name's Kevin Brown, and I am the former Community Services Manager for the City of Evanston. And I'm speaking to you this evening to provide information to you and to the public that there is an ongoing racial discrimination and retaliation investigation that is occurring by the Illinois Department of Human Rights involving Miss Erica Storley, Karen Hawk, and other city administrators at the City of Evanston. I think this information is important as Ms. Storley was a candidate for the city manager position. In most cities, that kind of situation would be a disqualifying event. At the conclusion of the investigation, the Illinois Department of Human Rights will provide my attorney and myself a right to sue letter. And I'm just informing the council and Ms. Storley and those administrators that we will pursue all of our legal rights and options to the fullest extent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Carolyn Laughlin, Eric Bissett, then Mike Vasilko.
Good evening, and thank you very much. I want to thank the council for all your hard work, not just on this issue, but through these long COVID months when you have been working very hard to get a difficult job done in a more difficult mode. I'm here tonight because, like everyone on this call, we know that our country right now, people across the country, are questioning the integrity and the validity of our national government. Many of us are sitting around our kitchen tables every day now, writing postcards to swing states, telling individuals that it's important to go out and vote, and letting people know that their voice really, really matters. I've lived in Evanston for 35 years now, and I've chosen Evanston very deliberately because I never worried here about the ability of our citizens to partake, to mix it up, to oftentimes disagree, but in the final analysis come to a conclusion that everybody felt like they had a hand in. I'm not on this Zoom call tonight with you folks to tell you that you've made a right or wrong decision, because I don't know what your decision is. What troubles me, what disheartens me, is that the city manager is the most critical decision that the council will be making. And we have lots of citizens in our city right now who feel like they've been boxed out, that feel that they have not been able to partake in a legitimate process. This isn't the Evanston that I know. It isn't the Evanston that I'm proud of. And it isn't the Evanston that I feel is vital and vivid, and that makes us all feel really good to live here. So like so many other people on this call, I'm urging the council to slow down, to deliberate more fully, to ensure that the aldermen have a chance to engage with their constituents. I happen to live in the 6th Ward, so I'm feeling pretty good right now. But I hope that every alderman has an opportunity and is encouraged to share with constituents where they stand and why they stand where they do on this important decision. So again, thank you very much for your consideration. And I hope that at the end of this, while we may not agree on the outcome, we can at least feel proud of our process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Eric Passett, then Mike Vasilko, then Ray Freeman. Welcome, Eric.
All right. I'm Eric Passett, and I'm the owner of North Shore Apartments and Condos, and also a resident of the 4th Ward. I'm speaking on for two different issues. Kind of they're interrelated, but as most people know, I'm a landlord in Evanston and have been a resident for a long, long time. And I guess there was a state funding that was set up called IDA to help out residents who couldn't pay their rent. Right now, as you probably know, there's a moratorium on evictions in Evanston. And this is going, as probably most people know, this pandemic is going to go on a lot longer than we all care to admit or accept. And the funding still hasn't, none of the landlords have received it yet. I'm not saying this is your fault, so please don't take it that way. This is more information. And it's grossly underfunded. It was for 5 months or $5,000 the landlords would receive directly, which I think is a good way to do it. It's the moratorium for evictions is going to go on a lot longer than that, probably way into spring. Who knows? We can't decide that. So I would urge you guys, the council and the mayor to talk to the state officials to fund more money for this, because we haven't even received the first part of it. And I can tell you that landlords have been hit on all fronts. As I talked to you about it last year, taxes have gone through the roof on properties, investment properties. It's scary. If you talk about wanting to raise taxes more, landlords can't even afford what has already been passed. And so that's enough said on that. The second part I want to talk about is restaurants. As most people know, every day another restaurant closes in Evanston. I might be exaggerating, but not by much. And again, a lot of it's due to high taxes and a lot of other things, but that's a lot of things we can't control. I urge the council and the mayor to try and do whatever they can to do about it, because if we don't, come spring, there isn't going to be any restaurants left. And now we're going to a season where we can't have outdoor dining. And I don't own any restaurants, or I'm not a part of it in Evanston at all. So I'm not speaking on my behalf. I am speaking on my behalf for landlords, but for restaurants. If we wait any longer, if we don't do something maybe about lowering whatever we can to help out the landlords of restaurants and the restaurants themselves, more than just like remodeling, helping them pay their rent, there's not going to be any restaurants left. What's going to be left this spring? A bunch of empty stores. So that's enough out of me, and I do appreciate you allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Eric, for talking about both of those issues. Next up, we've got Mike Vasilko, then Ray Freeman, then Kathleen McCann.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Want to piggyback on what others have said. I happen to be one of the fortunate people selected or offered the opportunity to be on one of those community panels last week. I want to thank Alderman Sufferton for allowing me to do that. But I know there was 74,000 other citizens of Evanston that wanted to have the same opportunity, at least as much as I can say, it wasn't ideal by any stretch, but at least you had some face time with the candidates. And I wish, and I feel guilty actually, that other 74,000 people could not be in the same room or on the same Zoom call as we were. But I do think it's important that the aldermen acknowledge who they voted for. I think that's very important considering the upcoming elections, and I look forward to hearing that from Alderman Sufferton and others during the course of this week. I also want to speak quickly on two other issues. The budget that you're going to be talking about tonight. You're talking about raising taxes again. I should say the interim city manager's proposal is to raise taxes. Her proposal is also to significantly reduce the police budget by eliminating 100% of their vacant police department positions while maintaining and keeping a budget for 26 other vacant positions, which, in fairness, should be either eliminated as well, or there should be an equal elimination of vacant positions across the board. So once again, I've heard Erica Storley talk around town about, defunding the police department and slashing their budget, even during the interviews last week that I participated in. I don't understand what the underlying resentment is that Erica Storley and some aldermen have towards the police department. The police department is a non-political group, which makes them, I guess, an easy target for aldermen and for the interim city manager to try and score points and politicize the police department in hopes of winning votes at the expense of safety and security in Evanston. So I do wish, if you're going to eliminate vacant positions, you take them evenly across the board, and maybe you don't have to raise taxes. Lastly, speaking of giving away money and raising taxes to pay for it, you have two items on the agenda: giving $87,000 to the Evanston Rebuilding Warehouse, and loaning and or granting another $50,000 to Heckey's. People like these organizations, but again, this council is picking and choosing who wins, who loses, and asking the citizens of Evanston to pay for it through raised taxes. So I would ask respectfully that those two initiatives be rejected tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next up, we've got Ray Freeman, then Kathleen McCann, then Darlene Cannon. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Haggerty, City Council members, and Clerk Reed. It's been a long time. First, I'd like to say I agree with everyone who's spoken before me. And first, I'd like to say thank you to Gail Schechter for putting together the well thought out letter that hopefully you all have gotten concerning the new city manager. I'm puzzled by what you consider a public process, which we've been talking about for a long time, a lot of years. Just a conversation, which is dialogue, which seems to be missing. That's a big piece of the puzzle that seems to be missing, that we just, if residents can get together with city council members and sit down and talk and work out differences, work out what city manager, we already talked about what qualities we're looking for in a city manager, but I hope you understand the outrage and betrayal that we have felt, and sincerely hope that these issues can be corrected ASAP. The same is true with the budget. You said, oh, we have 3 budget meetings. I was at the 3 budget meetings. It doesn't begin to touch on creating a new city budget. Okay, we're still, and I understand, the coronavirus, we're still $12 million in the hole. I understand that part. But like Mike said, you're planning on giving $50,000 to Heckey's and $87.5 to Evanston Rebuilders, both places which I love. Don't get me wrong. But we're predicting a $12 million deficit. And also, I was surprised to hear last week at the Rules Committee, you're all talking about giving yourselves raises. You probably couldn't have picked a worse time to talk about giving yourself raises with a $12 million deficit looming on our heads. I don't understand why you all are against having the residents being a part of the process. Okay? We need to have a voice and a choice, like we keep saying. Interestingly, on city budget, the city manager, I remember clearly, I think it was a year and a half ago, Tom Sufferton wrote in his newsletter about having a process. We need to start a process a year and a half ago about selecting a new city manager. Some people were very upset by that. And I remember Tom wound up apologizing for that newsletter, but he was right. Okay, we needed that process, and a year and a half later, we're still talking about it and saying that you had a 6-hour powwow after the day after the 3 candidates were interviewed, in quotes, interviewed by the questions that citizens asked. And then the next day, you chose a city manager. So we're left, we've been waiting for what? We've been waiting a year and a half for a city manager, and we still don't have one.
Thank you. We're over our time.
Thank you. Thanks for listening, and I hope you make the right choice here. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got Kathleen McCann up next, then Darlene Cannon, then Sean Peck Collier.
Mayor, I'm not seeing the next speaker on the Zoom.
All right, so we'll check in at the end and see if Kathleen's with us. Let's go to Darlene Cannon, then Sean Peck Collier, then Sharon Kushner.
Okay. Hello. Good evening, all. Like many, I have concerns about the current state of affairs of our country, which is why it is imperative we focus on process, policies, and politicians at the local level. Local level electoral politics have direct implications on the communities in which they serve. We cast our vote to elect older people with the expectation that they will represent the people. The people of Evanston expect representation and transparency from our council men and women. The selection and voting process for city manager was not that. This process did not present as justice for many of us in Evanston. From an anti-racist position in which the city and their officials often appropriate, there should have been great and fair consideration for Aretha Farrell Benavides, who, in my critical opinion, is adequately qualified to perform as Evanston City Manager. I believe that Aretha has the competency, experience, and leadership required to work effectively with council, stakeholders, and community leaders. I was very impressed with Aretha's knowledge of and experience with community engagement, public financial management, and her understanding of the various challenges within a city like Evanston. Aretha leads with listening and affirms the lives of residents, particularly in such uncertain times. I speak in conjunction with my fellow community residents. We look forward to and will continue to advocate for the transparency around City Council's individual voting records. Thank you very much to the community members that continuously fight for transparency in Evanston city government.
Thank you, Darlene. I understand we do have Kathleen McCann with us, so we're going to jump back up to Kathleen, and then we'll go to Sean Peck Collier and Sharon Kushner.
Oh, hi there. Thank you. I just wanted to say I haven't heard what has gone before, so I don't want to be repetitive. I know that we don't officially know what's going on with the position, but I'm 50 years old, and I have a pretty good idea of where this is going. And I just wanted to say I think I'm disappointed, and I'm really angry that we're not trying to hire someone who everyone in Evanston can have confidence in. And, I know that outrage right now there's a lot of demands on our outrage, and there's a lot of demands on everybody's time and attention right now. We've got a real turkey we have to get rid of in Kentucky, not to mention the president. So, I know a lot of people right now aren't paying attention, and I happen to have the time. So I think I just want to say I think this is a big mistake. I think you're making a mistake. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we've got Sean Peck Collier, then Sharon Kushner, then Mary Rosinski.
First off, wow. I just want to recognize Mayor Haggerty and Ms. Gandersky way to completely disregard the voice of both your Black City Clerk and the state. I see old patterns die hard. Okay. Good evening, Alder folks. I want to echo many of those before me. 4 months ago, you made two decisions as City Council. First, you all adopted a resolution affirming the city's commitment to ending structural racism and achieving racial equity. Second, only after enormous outcry from your constituents, you committed to an open process in the search for a new city mayor, rather than follow Mayor Haggerty's push for expediency over equity. Transparency, equity, and a public process with a focus on community input. That's what we asked for. That's what you committed to. So why have 7 Alder folks broken their commitments? Last Thursday, you chose our new city manager in a closed-door executive session. This was less than 24 hours after the city manager candidate forum occurred and before the recording of the event could be viewed by anyone who missed it. This was an hour after your hand-chosen community panels gave feedback on scripted questions. The panelists were not allowed to ask their own. There was no true community input or feedback involved. This move made the entire process a waste of community money and time. Again, why have 7 Alder folks broken our trust? Next, in our proposed 2021 city budget, we're seeing an $800,000 increase in the Evanston Police General Fund over their adopted 2020 fund, while all other community service departments are being defunded. In addition, though the alternative to police pilot program is meant to work in conjunction with EPD, there have been no redistributed funds from the Evanston Police Department to this program to ensure its success. Though our alder folks received over 400 emails in 1 month calling for such a move, it was only given $200,000 from the Human Services Fund. Every successful alternatives to police model the city has explored has required at least 3 times as much to operate. In short, this program has been set up to fail. The budget also calls for a rise in property taxes, which is long established as an issue that pushes disenfranchised residents out of our community. Once more, we're seeing $800,000 for trees, $800,000 more dollars for police, raises for council members, and only $200,000 for black and brown bodies. Once more, we're seeing the city's position on whether Black Lives Matter and performative commitments to racial equity and transparency. As James Baldwin once said, "I can't believe what you say because I see what you do." I ask our alder folks to amend the proposed budget to better reflect our values. And if Ms. Storley was chosen in the executive session, I ask our alder folks to vote against any contract until a truly public process has occurred. And to Ms. Storley, if you were the candidate chosen, it behooves you to back out of the contract negotiations. The City Council has set fire to their own seats unless they reverse their decision. Your position may very likely be short-lived. You get to choose what kind of light will shine on you. Make the right choice.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Sharon Kushner, Mayor Rosinski, and then Judge Lionel Jean-Baptiste.
Hi, this is Sharon Kushner. I'm making a public comment tonight, even though I've learned over the past months of attending city meetings that as a whole, City Council, Mayor Haggerty, and city staff, you do not truly listen to the people you are supposed to serve. You do not seem to mind at all when Evanston residents point out that you have lost their trust, gone back on your word, failed to be transparent, and that you treat Black people unfairly, sometimes with outright malice, to advance your own agenda and preserve your power and way of life. You seem unashamed of your pretense to care for all of the residents of Evanston. You've helped me to see very clearly up close how our national politics work, how this country is indeed a place where white supremacy flourishes. We are replicating what is happening nationally right here in Evanston. Push through a Supreme Court justice that doesn't represent choice and freedom for all Americans. Yet, why? Because they have the power and it suits them. Push through a city manager that fails to adequately respond to the needs that residents identify are most important. Yep, because you have the power and it suits you. Push through a budget that increases property taxes and policing expressly against the wishes of Evanston residents and without making people actually safer and healthier. Yet, because you have the power and it suits you. Forget about the greater good. Ms. Storley, you will become city manager in Evanston as you elbow out 2 Black women eminently more qualified than you to address the needs of all residents of Evanston. As you take your place in this city, understand your place in history. City Council and Mayor Haggerty, like the national election on November 3rd, this next Evanston election can't come fast enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Mayor Rosinski, then Judge Lionel Jean-Baptiste, and then Giles Long. Welcome, Mary.
Mayor, I don't think Ms. Rosinski's on the Zoom call.
We don't see Mary. Okay, so we'll come back to her. She comes on. How about Judge Lionel Jean-Baptiste? I see him here, but I don't see his light on. I'm going to...
I'm here. I'm muted.
There he is. Welcome, Judge.
Thank you very much. I want to say hello to all my friends and colleagues on the City Council. Thank you for your public service. It ain't easy. I know that. It takes a lot of perseverance and great work. Tonight, I'm just appearing to ask you to vote for the resolution 720 renaming the Harbor Park as Harbor Payne Park. It's commonly known as Canal Park. It is a park that borders the westernmost part of the city, bordered by the Northern Channel, Dempster Street, and Main Street. This was a community at some point that was one of the least desirable locations. It was one of the communities that whose roads were paved last in terms of the city's priorities. We had a champion in the community who took the lead to organize us and to maintain stability, access, service, and help our community. And that was Betty Payne. Betty would also served as the county, what was it, township president, right? And she served the Canal Park neighbors for 34 years. 34 years, called meetings almost every month, every other month, when our community had begun to be destabilized by sometimes our own kids who were growing up who were out of order. Betty would organize the neighbors to, knock on the doors and talk to some of the youth in the community. Betty had organized marches and participated in the parade under the banner of Canal Park Neighbors. And in your resolution, I know it states that we had some t-shirts labeled noisy neighbors, but it was really nosy neighbors. It was a sort of proactive kind of intervention that we were engaged in to make sure that we stabilize our community. So Harbor Park, Harbor herself, I have learned, is a very strong, has been a very strong person in terms of the history of Evanston. She was active in the suffrage movement. She made great contribution. We do not want to discard the name Harbor, but we want to append Payne as part of the name of the park to honor her contribution and to continue to share with the community the work of Betty Payne and also Ms. Harbor. So please support the ordinance, the resolution 77R20. And I want to thank Alderman Braithwaite for his leadership in trying to advance this particular resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Bye-bye.
Next up, we've got Giles Long, then Chris Kruger, then Allie Harned. Do we have Giles with us?
I don't believe so, Mayor.
Okay, so I'll put no show there. Chris Kruger, Allie Harned, then Bennett Johnson. All right. I thought I saw Chris Kruger earlier. How about, I understand we have former Alderman Dolores Holmes. Is she with us?
She just needs to unmute.
Oh, there you are. Welcome, Dolores.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Hi, colleagues. Colleagues, it's good to see you all. I really wanted to come on because after listening to some of the comments, I felt compelled to say that I was one of those chosen few of citizens who participated on one of the community panels last week, although I did listen on Wednesday night as well to the candidates. And it's a privilege. I think we do have an open process for the city manager's position. I think it has worked well. because you choose all the voters out there. We choose aldermen. They are our representatives, and those are the people who make the decisions. And I think that we have to learn how to hold our people accountable. You'll have a chance to vote if you're not happy. And for those of you who want a more involved position, you're going to have to run for office. It's as simple as that. I think that we have to stop beating each other up. This is, as Judge Baptiste just said, this is not an easy job. I did it for 12 years, so I know. I'm speaking from experience. I enjoyed it. I love doing the work. But it's not nice being beat up every week. So I'm saying to you all, hope this is encouraging to you who are sitting there listening. I know you listen. People think you don't, but I know you listen. I know you hear. But we all have to do what is right. And we all know what is right. And we know how to do what is right. So I'm hoping people will listen. Stop thinking that everybody has a card up their sleeve. I don't think that. I really don't. We've got to stop being conspiracy theorists. We just have to stop that. That is something that is making our country sick. And we need to stop it. So I'm sorry, I just had to do that. I'm very upset this evening. This is not this is not the Evanston, Carolyn said it earlier. This is not the Evanston that I know or love. Thank you, Mayor, for giving me a chance to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, former Alderman Holmes. Nice to see you. All right, do we have Chris Kruger? He was here earlier. Is Chris back?
Hi, Mayor Haggerty, I am.
Okay, welcome, Chris.
So I want to comment on the city manager. What you're seeing is a thing called anti-populism. So anti-populism is the idea that the people, and remember that our government is supposed to be of, by, and for the people, that the people don't possess the qualities, the intelligence, the aptitude to pick a city manager, that we have to leave that decision to the advanced degreed professional class instead of leaving it to the people. The people that I have heard, the people who are active, the people who are engaged, the people who are involved, the people that actually care what happens, do not want the interim city manager to become the permanent manager. But they're running up against this anti-populist sentiment, which tells us that we have to defer to elites. It tells us that we have to defer to the advanced degrees, to the attorneys. And by the way, I'm an attorney. I passed the Illinois bar. And that and $4 will get me a latte at Starbucks. That's how much my law degree is worth in determining the qualifications of the city manager. So we should defer to the people. I also want to mention reparations, because I'm proud that the city of Evanston has invoked the word reparations, whether we do a perfect job, whether we are flawless in executing it. It's good that we brought it up after 400 years of enslavement of our African American citizens. I'm very proud of the city of Evanston for having a reparations committee. I would sponsor a state of Illinois reparations commission if I were in a position to do so. So my understanding, and I'm sure I'll be fact checked if I'm wrong, but my understanding is we've already heard interim city manager disparage reparations, or talk about cutting reparations, or talking about that as a potential area to be reduced. So that's not what the people want. I want to mention climate. I want to also point out that I'm against fracking and I'm against the pipelines. And I'm the only person that's going to stand for the people of Evanston against fracking and against pipelines. So I want to make that point. I want to make a very brief point about FOIA.
Chris, we're up at our time, so if you can wrap it quick.
10 seconds. FOIA should be amended. Repeat requesters should get the same deference as the mainstream media. And we should close the exemptions in FOIA so we can have transparency in government. And we should have the people decide who our city manager should be. And I stand with the people of Evanston. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Allie Harned, then Bennett Johnson.
Hello, good evening, honorable everyone. I'm Allie Harned from the 2nd Ward. I'd like to first acknowledge, especially on this Indigenous Peoples Day, that we are sitting on stolen lands from the Potawatomi, Miami, and Peoria nations, and I pay respect to the many elders and tribes of these lands, both past and present. While District 65 is boldly standing up for anti-racist values and getting death threats for it, the city of Evanston, in which it's embedded, is plunging forward in a weak, opaque, and unsurprising, unfortunately, process, which is an utter betrayal of public trust. First, note that we only have a search process at all because the people demanded it. The mayor wanted to push forward the interim manager back in May and June, but we demanded a transparent public process, that the process that we were promised. The council looked like they were going to push it through anyway until, to her credit, the interim manager herself said that she thinks there should be a search process. So the council paid an executive search firm tens of thousands of dollars to cast a wide net and find the best candidates to run this city. In the past few weeks, the field of 70 applicants has been narrowed to 3 who we can assume are all qualified candidates for this position. Now, I watched the public forum last Wednesday night, and I heard 3 candidates ask many questions from the community, and I understand there were 3 panels the following day, an emergency council meeting, and a decision, which will be announced tomorrow. I have a strong suspicion that the finalist is the current interim city manager, which would be acceptable if she were the strongest candidate. However, from what I myself witnessed from and what I heard from the panels, the candidates who are not the current interim manager blew her away. They had solid experiences and inspiring answers about racial equity, affordable housing, closing the budget gap. They had innovative and bold ideas, while our interim managers seemed to be committed to continuing the usual status quo of Evanston, which is not what we need right now. I do appreciate that she's a passionate member of the community and lives and works here, and I appreciate that she, like all of you and all of us, have worked very hard during this global pandemic. However, if being a member of the community were the requirement, any of us could fill that role. And carrying through your city through a major crisis is kind of the least that we would expect of our leaders. However, as a school social worker, I have witnessed firsthand the ongoing and unmitigated struggles of our most vulnerable families, many of whom have actually had to move away from Evanston because they didn't get the support they needed during this crisis. Additionally, the 2 other candidates were Black women, one with a PhD in public health epidemiology and a master's in public health, which seems like that might be a positive thing to have in the midst of a global pandemic. And the public forum was an hour and a half of Black excellence and white status quo-ness, and coincidentally fell on the same night as the vice presidential debate, where we witnessed more Black excellence and more white men-ness, this time with a fly on top. I'd also like to point out the parallel of pushing through a candidate by the current council when new potential candidates are currently collecting signatures to run for city council to Senator McConnell's latest stunt with SCOTUS. We do need to have a city manager, this is true, but the process of pushing it through a candidate whose values align with the conservative moneyed interest does not seem like the course of action that the city council, who on paper is committed to racial equity, should be following. I join the many residents and groups who are tonight demanding a transparent process. In particular, I request from my Alderman Peter Braithwaite a public meeting with a full accounting of why he selected who he selected and the reasons why. I'd also like to remind all Evanston voters that municipal elections are on April 6, 2021. Please get involved in the movement to elect a progressive, transparent, and trustworthy slate of candidates who will listen to their constituents. You're right, Alderwoman Holmes, that this is not the Evanston that we know and love, and someday I hope it will be after April 6th, 2021. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Allie. All right, and our last speaker tonight is Bennett Johnson. Is Bennett with us?
Mayor, I don't believe Mr. Johnson is on the Zoom call.
Okay, that completes all the folks that signed up, right, Luke?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for your comments at public comment. We're now going to move into our agenda for this evening. So first up is special orders of business. I'm going to ask Alderman Rainey, could you move SP1, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Special order of business SP1, approval of Evanston CARES Act amendment in the FY 2019 action plan to include the second allocation of DBG CV funding. That is in the amount of $506,127,000, which combined with the first allocation of these funds in the amount of $1,080,243,000 totals $1,586,370. This is for action. I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Lots of seconds. Okay, this is open for any kind of conversation or discussion. All right, seeing none. City Clerk, could you please take the roll on SP1?
Okay, unmuted. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin. I didn't hear you, Tom, but.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
And Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
All right, SP1 passes the Evanston City Council on an 8-0 vote. All right, we're now going to move to the second item, which is a discussion item. Alderman Rainey, could you just move this for discussion?
Yes, I will. Mr. Mayor, I move SP2, which is the 2020 budget update. Staff will provide an update on fiscal year 2020 budget. I move this for discussion.
Second.
All right, thank you. I'm now going to turn it over to Interim Manager Storley to start off this discussion on our 2020 budget update. If you're watching from home, the 2021 budget was released last week. You can find that on the city's website if you go to cityofevanston.org. /budget. We have all the budget documents there for 2021. The City Council is going to be talking about that next Monday on the October 19th City Council meeting. So tonight we're just focused on the 2020 budget update, which obviously has been severely affected because of the pandemic this year.
Mayor, I apologize for interrupting. I think you said the 2021 budget, but just in case you didn't use the word proposed,
Proposed. Thank you. No, I didn't use the word proposed, so thank you for mentioning that. So what you're seeing online is the city manager's proposed budget. We will go through several meetings where the aldermen who ultimately vote and decide what that budget is going to be are going to have many discussions about that, and there's going to be a lot of community input on that. So thank you, Alderman Wilson. Interim Manager Storley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Tonight, Hitesh Desai, our CFO, and Kate Lewis-Lakin, our budget manager, are here to give you an update on the 2020 budget. As you have alluded to, and as we all are aware, the pandemic has caused a great deal of stress on our city budget, and I wanted to give an update on where we are current year, so everybody understands where we are as we head into discussions regarding the 2021 budget. So pretty much we're falling in line where we had predicted a few months back, but I'll hand it over to Kate and to Hitesh right now to give their presentation.
Welcome, Hitesh and Kate.
Hitesh, I can't hear you. Can anyone else hear Hitesh?
Oh.
Not yet.
Still no, Hitesh.
You might want to check if your device is muted. You're still muted, Mr. Desai.
All right, I'll bring up the presentation and start it unless Kate is on and wants to start it.
I can just offer a suggestion, maybe function F4, Mr. Desai, if you try that. Or if you're on a Mac, then maybe the Apple key F and then whatever that is, the fourth one.
Or how about you just use your device's mic and speaker at this point?
Oh, nice. Yeah.
All right, Hitesh can also just call in and he can do audio if he can't get the video. But I'll go ahead and get started until he gets a chance to come on. Can everybody see this and hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. All right. So as you are aware, a couple of months back, we revised our initial projections on what we thought our anticipated revenue shortfall was going to be based on the effects of the pandemic on our city revenues. The $12 million shortfall is still about where we're at. And due to last year's $1.6 million budgeted surplus, we started the year with a little bit of cushion. As you recall, the City Council decided to embark on a 3-year plan to contribute $1 million a year to shore up our fund balance so that in the event that something catastrophic were to happen, who knew it was going to be 3 months later, we would have a better cushion with which to land if we were to find ourselves in a situation. So that $1.6 million was only adopted at $1 million, but 1.6 is what we ended at. That helped mitigate some of the revenue loss that we are experiencing current year. So we're expecting that our end of year balance will be 13.7 million. This next chart is where we fall in terms of our policy on our fund balance. We have adopted a policy of 2 months of budgeted expenses as where we're going to, where we would like to keep our general fund balance. As you can see from the chart, the red line is where we'd like to be, what our policy states. The blue line is where we've actually come in since 2015. So we've never met it in the last 6 years, but there's going to be a lot of effort put forth over the course of the next few years to get us back up to where we need to be. If you saw the proposed budget press release last week, we're proposing to put an additional $1 million into the fund balance for next year to make up for what we're using this current year. August budgeted revenues came in at 68% of budget. The year before was at 76%, so a drop of $7 million.
Erica, can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead, Hitesh. Take it away.
Okay. I'm sorry for that technical difficulties, but yeah, I would just, so as Erica was pointing out, as of 2020, the general fund revenues are 68% compared to last year of 76%. So that's where we have that loss of around $7 million. Moving along to the next screen about the same thing in the expense side. And if we look at it, we are at 66% of the budget versus the 72% last year. So this is where we have savings because of those vacancies and some of those furloughs and some of the other contract restructuring and those kind of measures which we put it into the effect after the March. And that's why we have expenses down. Some of the services were not there. So obviously that resulted in savings too of the expenses, and which is $4.2 million. Moving along to the next one is can you please just scroll to the next one? Next slide, please. Let's see. Okay, thank you. Talking about the cash and investment, this is the big item. Overall cash and investment as of now, as of October 9 is around $90 million. Obviously, this is higher because we got the second installment of property tax money, and we had the bond sale, and we got the bond money in September. So that's why we have a lot higher cash than kind of a normal. Obviously, this would go down after we pay almost $15 million in debt service as of December 1st. Major funds cash balance is right there. General fund over $5 million, CIP fund $18 million, which includes some of the bond money. Water, sewer, and solid waste fund combined over $15 million. Again, we still have the line of credit of $15 million with the Byline Bank. So to ensure the liquidity when this kicked in around March, April, we were not sure whether we would have enough cash to pay the bills. So we have that. Luckily, we haven't used that line, and hopefully we don't have to use any dime out of that thing. Moving along, talking about the property tax. So, and this is a biggest source of revenue for the city. And right now they are reporting at 99%. And when I say 99% as of like now, as of October 12th, because as of September, we were only 90% or 91% compared to a 99% last year. But as you guys, most of you know, that Cook County had extended the deadline to pay the second installment. So looking at the September report, I was a little worried. And then I ran the reports again, and I saw that we roughly got $4.3 million in last week of October. And that puts us to the 99% at par with the last year. So that's pretty good. But still, we will look at it, whether we have any more collections, because obviously, if we had the loss factor added too, so we'll continue to kind of look into the October and November. Okay, moving on to the next one. Sales tax month to budget. Again, right now we are looking at we have 6 months of roughly payments of sales tax because it's a 3-month lag. So we are right around at 53% in the sales tax and 48% in home rule sales tax. So obviously, yeah, we should have it like right around 58% of the 7-month target. So we are like around 5% behind in the sales tax and a little more in the home rule sales tax. And obviously, yeah, we continue to look at each number and see, and we would revise the numbers if it's dramatically up or down for the sales tax. Income tax, moving to the next screen. Income tax is surprisingly, yeah, I mean, I look at the numbers as of now, and we are doing better than even last year. We are at 73% after the end of 8 months. The target would be right around 66%. Obviously, there were like unemployment funding and all that. Census workers were still working. So we will see now going forward in the next couple of months that how we do in the income tax, that might give us a better idea. And one of the other revenues which is doing a lot better is the use tax, where, you know, we buy those online sales, and most of the revenues, yeah, they are reported under the use tax and not the sales tax. And we are doing pretty good there. We have, like, as of 6 months, we are at 69% compared to a target of 50%. So that's pretty good in the use tax number. So these are some of the major revenues besides property tax, sales tax, home rule, sales tax, income tax, and the use tax. Moving on to the response, COVID-19 response funding, all the grants. I don't know whether Kate, are you there?
Hi, yes, I'm on the call.
Okay, go ahead.
So just one item to highlight here is that we have received our distribution through the CARES Act coronavirus relief funds for Cook County. So that's $619,000. So the city has received that money. So of our $4.5 million expected, which is a number you've heard a few times, we now have $1.4 million in cash. So we expect some more of that before the end of the year, and then some of that will carry over into 2021 as well.
Any other questions related for grants, revenues, expenses?
One question, Hitesh, on the grants. Does getting this federal money trigger a more elaborate single audit act or anything like that because of the amount that we're getting, or are we still below a certain amount?
No, I mean, this is obviously, city of Evanston is subject to the federal, I mean, the single audit because the threshold is 750,000. So obviously we get a lot of CDBG money. So if you look at the city's history, I mean, we are always subject to that. Yeah, the major program could change if we get substantial amount over a couple of millions. In the most times it's a CDBG and those kind of programs where we get a bigger revenue qualify as a major program and the auditors look at it kind of, detail. So we'll see, yeah, depending on the amount we get, they would decide those major programs.
We have this, we have the audit, right? We always have that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out if it's going to be more elaborate if you go over a certain amount. I thought that was the case if so much of your federal money comes in, but that's
You're
good.
right.
Okay. So from when we last talked then, Hitesh, the really positive news is that we have gotten in that payment from the county for property tax. I just want to reiterate what you said, and we've gotten 99%, which is what we were projecting. So we did not see a loss in property tax collection because of the pandemic.
Absolutely. I mean, and as I said again, and I would repeat again, I mean, I was looking at September 30th numbers and I was scared because last year we were at 99% as of September 30th. This year we were at 91%. And that 9-10% means almost $5 million. And so that's a huge amount. But looking at the last week and we got $4.3 million. So I can sleep better now.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very nervous about that. And Northwestern football, usually in the fall, generates a lot of tax revenue around here. Your projections have accounted for really no tax revenue because they're not having fans at the games and all that, correct?
You're right.
Okay. Any questions for Hitesh or Kate? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you, Hitesh. Thank you, Kate, for all of your hard work. I mean, I really have to say, and I'm really, really pleased so far, honestly, that we've made it through financially the way we have. And it's been hard. I mean, our staff have all taken, furlough days. So in essence, our staff is only getting they did away with 1/24 of their pay this year. That's a big ask in 2020. And they've worked as hard as ever. So thank you. I mean, there's a lot of shared sacrifice all around this city, from our labor unions to all of our employees to employees that we had to sadly lay off as a result of the pandemic. And going into it, I actually thought we'd be in a worse situation than we are. I do want to stress, and I think we saw it on Hitesh's chart, the importance of having cash reserves, right? That's sort of your rainy day fund. And I appreciate all the aldermen that have been on the council for a while, because it's easy to say, oh, nothing bad's going to happen. Let's not put some money in there. But here's a year where we had to take $2 million from that. And we don't know what next year holds, honestly, with this pandemic. I mean, if we go down to another lockdown and everything else, we may need some more of that. So it's really, really important that we take that seriously, and what our financial experts at the city are asking. I know we'll talk about that when we talk about the 2021 budget, proposed budget coming up. All right, so that was just a discussion point. So thank you, everyone, for that. We're now going to move to the consent agenda tonight. We had committee meetings earlier, so I'm going to ask Alderman if you'll take a minute, and if there is any item that you would like to remove from the agenda. I do have a question, and I do want to alert the council. There's one appointment on the council that we learned is not a resident of Evanston, as we initially thought. And so that person's going to have to be removed. I'm not sure if I can just do that now and tell you, unless somebody wanted to pull all the appointments, but that person is Ken Hazlitt, who is up for the Preservation Commission. But you have to be a resident of Evanston, and we learned literally just yesterday or today that he's not. Okay, so Ken Hazlett will not be on that list of appointments. His name is being struck. All right, but if you want to identify any items that you'd like to take off, take a minute and let me know. And if the committee chairs have a list of what you've taken off, I'll take that.
A4, A9, and A2, please.
A4, A9, and what was the last one?
A2.
Oh, A2. So A2, A4, A9. Okay.
Mayor, nothing was taken off of P&D. Everything passed on consent.
Okay.
But CM3, the minutes from September 29th.
Are off. Okay. Anything else?
Sorry, Mayor, I was told that A7 did not make it out of APW.
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right. So A7, okay. So that's not on the agenda because it failed to pass APW. Okay. All right. Any other items? All right, so right now I've got 4 items that have been pulled off CM3, which is the minutes A2, A4, A9. Okay, I'll give you 1 more minute. Does anybody need any more time?
Nope.
No.
Oh, okay.
You remove one more item, and I'm looking for the number. It's the amusement tax.
Amusement tax was
A12.
All right, A12 is off. Okay. All right. All right. Seeing nothing else that folks want to pull off, Alderman Rue Simmons, could you move the consent agenda? So you're not going to read each item, just move the agenda, less the items we all just removed.
Move approval for APW consent. Should I name those that are being removed?
I just rattled them off.
Okay.
I think we're okay there. And I'm going to have you move everything. You're going to move the CMs as well as the plan and development and economic everything.
Got it. Move approval for consent agenda.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Seeing no discussion, City Clerk, could you please take the roll?
And then there's one item in AP&W that has a suspension of the rules, so someone will have to move.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's A8.
Unless that was pulled from the consent, I didn't hear it.
It was not.
No, see, that's a great catch. All right. Does someone want to move a motion on suspending?
Move approval to suspend the rules for A8.
Second.
Second.
Okay. So this would allow it to be for introduction and action this evening. Any conversation, Alderman Braithwaite? We can't hear you.
Alderman Braithwaite, you're on mute.
You're muted. Oh, he's not maybe talking now?
Yeah, sorry. No, my apology. And I'm not speaking against, I'm in favor, but just as a procedure, Kelly, whenever if we have to suspend the rules, are we doing it both at committee as well as at council, or would it be moved from committee and then it's done at council? It seems a bit redundant, and I just don't recall having to do it twice from my few years on council.
Yeah, I think it should be done twice.
Done twice?
The council rules don't specify, so yes, it should be done twice.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, so seeing no discussion, City Clerk, could you take the roll on suspending the rules and allowing for introduction and action of the items on the consent agenda?
Certainly. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton. Aye. Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
And you're muted.
I think she froze.
Uh-oh.
Definitely.
She's saying aye. Look, she's saying aye.
Okay, yes.
Said aye.
Yes. Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
It
Alderman
seems to be frozen.
Braithwaite.
Aye.
And Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
And Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
All right, so on an 8-0 vote, the council passes to allow for the suspension of the rules for items that specifically cited in the consent agenda to allow for introduction and action. We had a motion that was seconded to move the consent agenda. Seeing no discussion on that, City Clerk, could you please take the roll on the consent agenda?
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton. Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey. Uh-oh. I also don't see Alderman Rainey now.
Maybe come back to her at the end.
Yeah.
I think we've been having some trouble with people getting dropped.
Yeah. Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
And Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
All right, so the consent.
I think we'll have to hold. We should hold there in accordance with the all may, based on the fact that she dropped off.
I mean, this thing passed 7-0 with Alderman Rainey. We don't have a vote.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but just maybe Ms. Skandersky can, or the law says that Ms. Skandersky, I'll let you.
Yeah, I would like to give her just 30 seconds to see if she pops back on. I think that was an unintentional leave, so I think we should just wait just a moment.
Is anyone texting her or calling her?
Yeah, I was just getting ready to.
She's locked out.
Okay.
Okay, so then we'll officially say that she's unavailable for the meeting. So I guess we'll take the vote at 7-0.
Well,
all right.
I mean,
thank you.
Can someone figure out how to send her a link or?
Yeah, I think given that she intends to, be in the meeting, maybe she can give someone a written confirmation that it's fine to go on. I think that'd be in accordance with the executive order. Because we wouldn't want someone to drop.
I tried to FaceTime her. How about that?
It's one way to bridge the gap.
Getting creative.
I've been knocked out.
I know. So I'm calling you on FaceTime so you can vote on the consent agenda. So I'm going to put my phone.
I vote yes.
You what?
I vote yes.
Can we hear that?
Yes.
She votes
I
yes.
vote yes.
Okay.
All right, so the consent agenda passes the Evanston City Council on an 8-0 vote. We're now going to go to the items that were removed from the agenda. They're all APW items plus one of the city minutes, CM3. Alderman Ruth Simmons, can you take us through all of those items?
Sure. A2, staff recommends approval.
I'm sorry, Alderman. Can we start with CM3 since it's just first on the agenda? It's those minutes.
Sure.
September 29th.
CM3. the city clerk recommends approval of the minutes of September 29th, 2020 for action.
Is there a second?
Just read through all of them.
No, we'll take them each one because this is
Got it.
off the consent. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Alderman Ravel.
I have to move to amend the minutes of our meeting on September 29th. On page 29 of our packet, if you look at item A5, it talks about the provisional moratorium on tenant eviction, and that was actually removed from the agenda in AMPW, so we did not approve it on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Alderman Ravel.
I'm sure Alderman Fleming would have done that if she.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for catching that.
All right. Any other discussion on this? All right, then let's, is there a second to her amendment for these minutes?
Second.
Okay. I guess I have to take
Yeah,
a
need to vote on the amendment.
amendment. So City Clerk, you take the roll, please.
Yeah. Sure. Alderman Bruce Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Oh, great. Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
And Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
All right, the amendment passes on an 8-0 vote. It's been moved and seconded for action, which is the approval of the minutes, obviously as amended. City Clerk, you take the roll, please.
Alderman Bruce Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
And Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
And Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
All right, CM3, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of September 29th, 2020, as amended, has passed the City Council on an 8-0 vote. Alderman Ruth Simmons, could you take us to A2?
A2, staff recommends approval of the City of Evanston's BMO Harris Amazon credit card activity for the period ending July 26, 2020 in the amount of $28,136.29 is for action.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, City Clerk, could you take the roll on A2?
Yes. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin. Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
And Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
All right, A2 passes the City Council on a 7-0 vote with Alderman Suffredin abstaining. All right, Alderman Ruth Simmons, could you take us to A4?
A4, staff recommends City Council adoption of Resolution 84R20, extending the declared state of emergency of November 9th, 2020 is for action.
Is there a
Second.
Okay. Open for discussion. Alderman Suffredin.
Just to ask, what is like the practical effect of extending this to the 9th, and why was the 9th picked as the date?
Interim manager Storley or city attorney?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that at all.
So, what is the practical effect of extending the declared state of emergency, and why was the 9th picked as the date to extend it to?
We've been extending for 1 month at a time because the governor's executive orders have been kind of extending along with our same timeline. So we've been just following the same timeline as Governor Pritzker's order.
Okay. Governor Pritzker's current order expires on the 9th of November?
It expires, no, I don't believe it expires on the 9th, but I think in order to try to get it close to coinciding with the expiration of his order, that's the last date we could give it.
Okay. Thanks, Colin.
All right. Any other discussion? All right. Seeing none, City Clerk, could you take the roll on A4, Resolution 84-R-20, extending the declared state of emergency to November 9th, 2020?
Yes. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite,
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen,
Aye.
and Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
A4 passes the city council on an 8-0 vote. Alderman Marie Simmons, could you take us to A9?
Absolutely. Staff recommends City Council adoption of ordinance 82020, amending section 513, parking of motor vehicles, section 73101, vehicles on sidewalks, parkways, and section 1041, stopping, standing, or parking prohibited in specific places to allow for parking of a vehicle on a parkway. The vehicle will be allowed to park on the parkway if there is an approved substrate surface. The vehicle fits entirely between the sidewalk, street, and concrete curbing inner edges where it meets the parkway. Is registered with the state of Illinois with a current Illinois license plate and can be moved with proper notice if required. The ordinance also adds a parking violation fee if the vehicle was not parked within the specific specifications, and notes that the vehicle parked on the parkway is subject to all city code enforcement. This is for action.
Second.
Okay. Alderman Sufferton?
And the reason I asked that this be removed is it was conveyed to me that it might be a good idea to consider amending this to prohibit 25 feet of an intersection, because there's a concern about cars that or vehicles that would be parked in the parkway that close to an intersection that may make stop signs difficult to see. So I was going to ask if anybody would be open to making that amendment. And then, so I am actually going to move that amendment that we prohibit 25 parking in the parkway within 25 feet of an intersection.
I would
Alderman
have some questions before.
Yeah. Well, it's a good, I think it still falls within this whole discussion. I mean, we've got Mike Rivera, like, can we hear from the city staff? I mean, this seems like a legitimate concern.
Hi, good evening, members of the City Council. Mike Rivera, interim parking manager. That sounds like a reasonable request, what Alderman Sufferton is suggesting. Typically, we don't allow people to park vehicles within 20 feet of a crosswalk. So he's asking for 25 feet, which makes up the 20 feet within, the crosswalk area, along with the crosswalk of the intersection. So that sounds like a reasonable request, because vehicles parking in the parkway driveway area along that area may pose a hazard for vehicles blocking traffic signal devices or perhaps a stop sign.
Was this something that you or the traffic folks discussed internally?
We did discuss it internally. This was something that was missed and it was circled back around, and it was brought to my attention through all the folks.
Okay. Alderman Fisk, did you have something?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to oppose this for a number of reasons. First of all, as I brought up when we had a previous discussion about it, I think it, especially considering the amount of traffic that we have with children bicycling on sidewalks, it makes it harder to see people come down the street. So it makes it harder for the people in the cars to see small children when they're parked on the parkway. We have a lot of problems with students with multiple cars and units that are already double parking on the parkway. I also have heard from residents that the way that they can sort of get around the residents only parking is by then creating a driveway for themselves as for example, private parking area. I don't agree with that. And in my ward, at least, it raises more problems than it actually solves. We already have along Sherman a number of different curb cuts with the sort of parking areas that don't go to garages, where residents just completely park them up, both next to houses and on the parkway. So it's going to create a problem in my ward. I don't see a benefit.
Okay, thank you. So just so everybody that's following, you were speaking about the entire ordinance, not just the amendment that Alderman Sufferton was suggesting. Alderman Ruth Simmons?
Did that amendment have a second? I thought
I think we're still having the conversation, and then we'll put it out again. Alderman Ruth Simmons?
Thank you. So the background on the amendment, Alderman Suffredin's amendment was helpful. Understanding that's consistent with our already safety practices for intersections. But in the neighborhood that I'm in, this actually helps solve a need. It's a solution to a problem of challenges with parking in dense neighborhoods, especially in the areas that are mixed-use, commercial, residential. And it is a change that is supported and requested actually by the neighbors along the neighborhood. So I'm going to be in support, and in the spirit of safety, Alderman Suffredin, thank you very much for the amendment. I will second that.
Okay. Alderman Rainey?
Well, I'm not speaking to the amendment. I'm kind of ambivalent about the amendment. But I do want to mention that I think it's going to be a problem because I don't know in my ward if there's any parkways that are deep enough in order to do this. I mean, you need to have a pretty large parkway to park a car.
Or a compact car.
Well, like my car, my little car. But most cars, I don't think, an SUV or like most cars are pretty big these days. And I think that's going to cause a lot of problems. People are going to be parking on their driveway and they're going to be getting tickets because their car's not going to really fit. And I think that's going to be a really big problem. So where are the parkways that this is going to work well?
Alderman. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Michael.
There's many parkways that have been identified, Southeast Evanston, Northwest Evanston, and even some, in the areas just surrounding the Civic Center, so West Evanston, even some neighborhoods in West Evanston near Dodge Avenue as well. So, I mean, holistically, I think everybody can stand to benefit throughout the city. This also gives some relief to the homeowners that are applying for the permits to maintain a driveway, that are also paying for the substrates that they're maintaining there annually, whether it's a concrete or it's an asphalt surface. And it also gives them an opportunity not to park their vehicle on the street during street cleaning dates and potentially receive citations, and as well not to park their vehicle on the street during snow emergencies because the vehicle would be off the street as well. So it would.
I'm going to support this. I just want to make sure people know that not everybody's going to be able to fit their car.
That's correct.
Tickets, and that's what I'm saying.
There is a potential if the vehicle doesn't fit, for the folks may be cited. That's correct.
Thank you, Michael. Alderman Ravel?
Oh, well, I was just going to respond to Alderman Rainey to say that I have heard from a number of my residents who would welcome a chance to park in the parkway, particularly on snow emergency and street cleaning days. So this would be very welcome for a number of residents in the 7th Ward.
I'm supporting.
Okay.
All right. Seeing no more, Alderman Suffredin, do you want to move the amendment?
Sure. So I move that we amend this to state that parking in the parkway is prohibited within 25 feet of an intersection.
Second.
Okay. Seeing no discussion, City Clerk, could you take the roll on the amendment? Do we have the City Clerk?
Yes, I apologize.
Okay.
Alderman Ruth Simmons?
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin?
Aye.
Alderman Ravel?
Aye.
Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
Alderman Fisk?
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite?
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen?
Aye.
And Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, Clerk. The amendment passes the Evanston City Council on an 8-0 vote. The item A9 ordinance 82-0-20 amending City Code Section 5-1-3 302.13 parking of motor vehicles, Section 7-3-10-1 vehicles on sidewalk, parkway, and Section 10-4-1 stopping, standing, or parking prohibited in specified places has been moved and seconded. If passed, it will be as amended. Seeing no discussion, City Clerk, you take the roll.
Alderman Simmons,
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton,
Aye.
Alderman Ravel,
Aye.
Alderman Rainey,
Aye.
Alderman Fisk,
No.
Alderman Braithwaite,
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen,
Aye.
and Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
All right. Ordinance 82-0-20, which is item A9, passes as amended 7-1 by the Evanston City Council. Alderman Simmons, could you move A12?
Absolutely. A12, staff recommends City Council adoption of ordinance 55020, amending the amusement tax to include online streaming services and to clarify that the tax applies to media that is capable of being streamed to mobile devices. Amusements tax revenue is deposited to the city's general funds for action.
Second.
Any discussion on this item? Alderman Rainey.
I want to know how people are complaining about this tax being on their bills right now when we're just passing it tonight.
If you recall, Madam Mayor, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we passed this ordinance earlier in the summer. So it went into effect on October 1st. What we are bringing forward tonight is the second reading of an amendment that clarifies how the tax is applied and who it applies to. So there is a clarification that was requested from the parties that we're working with to implement this. So that is what is on the agenda tonight.
Right. So I looked at all the information on the agenda tonight, and I couldn't understand from it what amount we're charging people for the streaming video tax. What is that tax?
The rate is 5%.
The rate is 5%. 5% of the cost of their cable? 5% of what?
5% of whatever if you subscribe to Netflix and you pay $10 a month, you're going to pay 5% tax on that $10 a month.
Okay. But not on their total Comcast bill. It wouldn't
Correct.
be 5% on the total. Okay.
Any other questions or comments on this item? All right, seeing none, City Clerk, could you please take the roll on A12 Ordinance 55-0-20, amending the amusement tax?
Alderman Simmons,
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton,
I abstain.
Alderman Ravel,
Aye.
Alderman Rainey,
Aye.
Alderman Fisk,
Nope.
Alderman Braithwaite,
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen,
Aye.
and Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
All right, A12 Ordinance 55-0-20 passes the Evanston City Council on a 6-1 vote with Alderman Sufferton abstaining. All right.
Mr. Mayor, do we?
Alderman Fisk voted no.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that. Sorry.
And could we hear from Alderman Sufferton why he was abstaining, please?
Sure. I was alerted by Nick Cummings at our last meeting that he had discussions with a client of mine on this matter.
Great, thank you. All right, we're now going to move to call of the wards. We'll start with Alderman. Why am I not seeing it? Who am I starting with today?
Simmons.
Alderman Bruce Simmons.
Thank you. Please join us this Wednesday for our 5th Ward meeting. We will pretty much have a neighborhood meeting discussing parking in the West End neighborhood. That's going to be the neighborhood along Church Street, McDaniel, Leland. Please do join us. And thank you all for a wonderful National Night Out, everyone that participated. A special thank you to the Parks and Recreation Department. Special shout out to Ken Cherry and Evanston Own It for all that you've done. And thank you to everyone that went canoeing on this last Saturday. Thank you to the Friends of the River for a wonderful tour, and again to the Parks and Recreation Department for making that happen in celebration of the environmental justice resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Sufferman?
Sixth Ward meeting on Thursday night at 7 p.m.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Ravel.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Alderman Rainey.
Yes, construction began today on the 60-unit affordable senior housing project on Howard Street, and we're all so happy and so proud. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to remind everyone in my ward that the 1900 Sherman development comes before Plan Commission this Wednesday night. So please tune into that. And that's my report.
Great. Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to thank all the residents that came out to National Night Out, where we had a movie in the park. Thank you to our staff for making that happen. As well, I just want to thank Judge Baptiste, as well as our law department, the neighbors who advocated at the 2 community meetings, as well as the Payne family for providing the information. This doesn't happen every day in Evanston, and I think she is now one of 5 Black residents who would have had a park named after them. So just thank you very much, Council, for your full support. And for the residents, definitely looking forward to the day when we will be able to gather and celebrate Ms. Payne and all of her contributions to our community in a safe way. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to let the residents of the 3rd Ward know that our next quarterly town hall meeting is Thursday, October 22nd. We'll send out a Zoom link, and I look forward to seeing everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
And there will be a 4th Ward meeting on Thursday at 7 p.m. this Thursday, 15th. The primary purpose is going to be to look at proposed changes to the development being proposed for the Vogue Fabrics property. So if you're interested in that, please tune in.
All right.
And it'll be done virtually as well on Zoom.
All right. Thank you for that. So that concludes call of the wards. I understand that we do not have executive session. Yay. So we've had a lot of executive sessions lately. So we got a break. We had a break tonight. I believe we will have one next Monday, or I don't know if it's next Monday. I think it's the following meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And everybody was quick with that. All right. City Clerk, could you please take, we had a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting.
Yes, Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
And Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
All right. On an 8-0 vote, this meeting is adjourned. Enjoy your Monday evening. We're out early today. We will be back next Monday, October 19th, and the major item on the agenda will be our 2021 budget, proposed budget that the city manager has put out that we'll have a beginning of a thorough conversation on. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.